I'm Louise Hancox, Director of Career Innovation for the Honors College, and I'm happy to be here with all our Career Development Center professionals for the latest in the Career Development Series. Today's session covers an essential tool and one of the hardest to manage, the cover letter. I'm thrilled. Here comes somebody else coming in. I'm thrilled to introduce our expert for today's session, Dr. Jessica Park. Dr. Park is the Career Services Specialist and Co-op Coordinator for the College of Engineering. She is passionate not only about student success and development, but also helping students find their career path by using proven career readiness techniques. Dr. Park has a master's degree in higher education administration and a doctoral degree in workforce development education from the University of Arkansas. I'm going to turn the session over to Dr. Park now. I'll be monitoring the chat, so please feel free to place comments and questions there. You may also use the raise your hand feature in Teams. Just in case we have some people new to Teams, the controls are in your center bar there, and the little hand is where you can raise your hand, and the talk bubble is the chat. So if you click on that, you should be able to join the chat. Does anybody have any technical questions before we get started? All right. With that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Park.
Hello, everybody. I hope everybody is doing really well today. And in these weird times, I'm still getting used to the technical aspect myself, so no worries at all. Let's see if I can adequately share my screen. Give me just a second here. I'm on an iPad from home, so it's there's always a little bit of a learning curve for me as well. So today what we're going to be talking about is, let's see, hold on, give me a moment. Okay, can everybody see what is on my screen? If somebody wants to just unmute and say yes.
We don't see a presentation, but we do see something that says screen broadcast.
That is so, okay.
There it is.
You're okay, we can see it. It's gone.
And it's gone.
Okay, because I've got
there we go.
Okay, you're back.
Okay, I've got you guys right here, but then I'm trying to also open a PowerPoint that is on my.
Hello.
Do you want me to throw it up for you?
Well, sure.
There it is.
Well,
you got it, Jessica.
Oh, did I? Okay. There. Maybe there's a delay.
It does seem a bit laggy.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I forgot Teams has that 16-second delay. That's right. Okay. Okay, well, so hello, everybody. It's so nice to see you all this morning. I'm so glad that you guys took a little bit of time to join us and join us, all of us. What we're going to talk about a little bit today is the elusive cover letter and trying to construct a cover letter that has as much impact as we can while you all are either applying for jobs or looking for jobs. It's interesting because some positions say that there's cover letters required, say they're optional, some don't even mention a cover letter. So we're going to kind of go through and try to detangle a little bit of the lingo that comes along with that today, as well as the actual construction of a really impactful cover letter as well. And so let's see. So what is the purpose of a cover letter? So, cover letters, some people think that they are a little bit old school. Some positions, especially in my area of engineering, a lot of positions actually don't require cover letters. But for most of the world, and even in higher education where we all work, there's always a cover letter required. So, there's generally several purposes of a cover letter whenever you need to actually write one, which the first one might be something like to motivate an employer to take action to invite you for an interview. If you really think about it, whenever an employer gets your resume, whenever they get your cover letter, all you are at that moment is just a name on a piece of paper. And so so if you think about it, cover letters are really a way to entice employers, almost like a teaser trailer to a movie, to kind of entice employers to want to get to that next step of really reading your resume. And so, and one of the biggest things that you can do is, our second bullet point is tailor your individual qualifications to the job that you're applying for. And we'll go through here in the next couple slides kind of how to do that and what the paragraphs and such actually look like within a cover letter. But, the purpose is again, is just kind of like a teaser to your resume. It's a way to really, in your own words, put how your qualifications and some of the experiences that you've done, how those can actually fit the job that you're applying for. And, another purpose of your cover letter is you're going to highlight your past experiences and why you would make a great candidate for the job at hand. And also to give an employer an introduction to your career highlights in your own words. Some employers may just want to learn a little bit about your writing style. Some of the things that may not be mentioned on a resume, like some of the soft skills, such as ability to work with teams, ability to communicate effectively. Those are things, writing wise, that will come out in your cover letter. Are you eloquent? Do you have pretty good grammar? Things like that. And so it's really just a way to really give employers an introduction to who you are and highlight some of the ways that what you're doing and what you've done really will fit into what the job description at hand is asking for. So let's go. So I'm just going to jump right in here, and I'm going to attempt to zoom in with my fingers here on my iPad onto some of these different things. So there's several little cover letter bits and pieces. The first thing that I want to talk about
Jessica?
is, yeah.
Sorry, we're still seeing the second slide, purpose of a cover letter. I think we're a slide behind you.
Oh, it must be the lag. Hold on.
I could throw it up right in Teams if that might make it.
Well, I have to zoom in with my fingers on different parts of it. So,
yeah.
It'll probably pop up here in a second because of the delay.
I don't think it's the delay. We didn't see the second slide until you moved to the third slide.
Oh, weird.
That's funny.
Okay, well,
there it was. We saw it for just a brief second.
Okay.
All I see is darkness. In this bag.
We're back to the purpose.
Okay. Well, let's see here. Yeah.
There we go.
Are we at the cover letter bits and pieces?
Bits and pieces, yeah.
Okay, that's where I am. Okay, I'll go ahead and continue, but if it blacks out again, yes, Louise, we'll go ahead and pop up because you have the PDF version, I think. So so if that happens again, we'll just pop up the other one. Can everybody see the cover letter bits and pieces?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, and then in that case, I am not going to touch my screen. I'm just going to guide you to different parts of it, just because I don't want to accidentally push the self-destruct button and the whole system goes down. So, okay. So one of the things that you want to focus on when you're kind of constructing your cover letter is your heading. And now, similar to your resume, you don't want to use headers and footers, but what you do want to do is copy and paste your heading from your resume over to your cover letter. And the reason that you're going to be doing that is because you're starting to create a brand for yourself. And branding is really important when it comes to, just kind of having everything be consistent in terms of your documentation that you have and such. And if you create a references page, you'll do the exact same thing. So you're just going to copy and paste your resume header over to your cover letter, just so that you have a similar heading to both documents. And another reason this is a good practice to do is that now all of your contact information will be on both pages. So let's just say that, for example, you have an employer that they are, they're looking through your resume, your application materials, and they lose a piece of your application. Let's say they lose your resume. At least they have all of your contact information as well on your cover letter, so that they can get in touch with you and things like that. So, so you're going to have your address, which is now optional. email address, phone number, and if you feel comfortable with employers actually looking at your LinkedIn page, you can have your LinkedIn address as well. Another thing you can have, which I don't see this as much anymore, is I have the date listed there. That is kind of optional, just kind of depending on how much space you're using. But the next piece, the actual company information, that is actually kind of a crucial piece. And I'm going to go through that just a little bit at a time here. So the first couple lines, the hiring manager's name and hiring manager's title. Now, every once in a while, well, occasionally, everybody has seen job descriptions where there is actually the name of a person that you send your application materials to. And then there's also job descriptions where you are sending it to the company itself and you have no idea who it's going to specifically. So if you actually have the name of the person in the job description, you're going to put their name there. Pardon me. And you're going to put their title. Now, if you don't, and it just says, if there is just a generic application and it does not have their name and their title, you can simply leave those 2 lines out. But what you do want to have on every cover letter, excuse me, dry throat, is the company name and their full address. If you have University of Arkansas, 1 University of Arkansas Way, Fayetteville, Arkansas, 72701. If you don't have the name of a person, at least have the as close of an address as possible to where you're going to be applying. Now, the salutation itself, the Dear Mr., Ms., or Dr. Smith, what you want to do here is I would always use something to make it as neutral as possible, including Mr., Ms., or Doctor, if you know that they're a doctor or not. What I usually try to steer students away from using is a title like Mrs. that implies someone is partnered. I've actually, in my past experiences of applying for jobs, before I knew that, I had an experience where I put Mrs. just out of, respect, and they called, and I have been called on that before, like, hey, you shouldn't assume someone is partnered. So, you want to try to keep it as neutral as possible. So Mr., Ms., or Doctor, if you know they're a professor, or if you're, doctor's office, that type of thing. And then you want to use a colon as well. Since it's a business letter, you want to keep it nice and formal. And so you want to use Dear Ms. Smith, and then use a colon versus a comma. And so now we're going to go ahead and get into a few of the bits and pieces of the actual cover letter itself. Generally, like I kind of mentioned a little bit before, the cover letter is somewhat kind of a teaser trailer into why the employer should take time to read your resume. So a really effective cover letter is usually about 3 paragraphs or so. And each paragraph has its own function within the cover letter to be able to show employers kind of navigate their way of, okay, now I really want to read this person's resume. So the first paragraph is, you're going to tell why you're writing. Like, my name is, I was really interested in such and such position. This is exactly the type of position I'm looking for with my various experiences. I saw that you have an opening on your website. I saw the opening on your website. And if you do know someone, you want to kind of gently mention that you know someone there, in terms of not the heavy name dropping, like, well, I know somebody, I know this person, and that's why they said I could get a job here. Not in that way so much, but more of like I have a good friend such and such that works here, and they mentioned that they've had a really great experience, and they encouraged me to apply for this job here. So you're gently letting them know that you know someone within the organization, but you're not doing the heavy name drop. So that paragraph is somewhat of an intro to your second paragraph. And one of the things you want to do in your second paragraph is really remember your audience. Now, this, they know that you want to work for this organization, whoever you're applying to. But this is what the thing about the second paragraph is, you're really trying to combine your qualifications and the experiences you've done to what the job description has itself. Why does the organization want to hire you? And give specific examples. You may mention a couple of things that you've done that tie directly into the job description itself. You may want to, you don't want to just rehash your resume. this isn't a time to do that. This is really an opportunity to mention the specifics of how what you've done fits 2 or 3 things in the job description and what they're asking for in your own words. And, tell why you're interested in this employer. This is the type of thing where, you may have read the mission of the organization or the vision page of the organization. Tell them why you're interested. Tell them, kind of elaborate on how it fits what you would like to do as a career path. This is the perfect paragraph to do that. And then the third paragraph, this is going to kind of be your kind of the conclusion. Kind of your conclusion paragraph. Make a strong closing statement, like, I really look forward to speaking to you about this opportunity, and I hope to hear from you soon regarding this opportunity. You can also say that I'm always available via the phone number above that you mentioned or email address. So please feel free to email me if you have any questions, and always thank them for their time. Thank you so much for your time and consideration in reading my application material, something like that. And now the actual salutation at the very end is, sometimes more often than not nowadays, especially nowadays, you will not be hand mailing in a application and a cover letter in, or resume and a cover letter in. 95% of the time, it's all submitting online. So if they do happen to, if you do happen to submit it by hand to someone, you can definitely do your handwritten signature. But if you are submitting something online, typing your name is just fine at the end. Okay, so I did go ahead and advance my slide, one slide here.
Jessica, it's going to take, it looks like it has a delay, but I have a couple of questions while we're waiting for the slide to catch up, if that works for you.
Yeah, sure, go for it.
Yeah, because it's still on the cover letter bits and pieces.
Okay.
So Masha has 2 questions. She's asking, does the employer read the cover letter first or the resume?
Okay, well, I would probably say that just depends on the company. Some people, and it kind of depends on the order that they get the materials as well. Like, for example, if you were applying for a job here at the university, you get the application packet, the resume, and the cover letter all for each candidate. And then it probably depends on whether someone reads the resume or the cover letter first. Just depending on the person. I would probably say that if a cover letter is required, more than likely they will definitely read the cover letter first. I would probably say that if it's optional, which a lot of my engineering students have optional or no cover letter required at all, I would probably say treat it as if they are going to read it first, because what you want to do is make sure that both of those items are at 100% in terms of grammar, and basically act as if they were going to read both, just in case they read one before the other. So does that answer her question?
Okay, there's a couple more questions. Yes, that one was answered. Is it okay to say "Dear hiring manager" if you don't know the person?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I would say definitely so. You could say, dear hiring manager, dear, dear search committee, dear search committee members. Now I know from higher education, pretty much every search is a committee, but in terms of industry, that's not always the case. And so, you could always put dear hiring manager, dear search committee, dear team members, something like that. The one thing that you don't want to put is "to whom it may concern," because that's considered outdated. And also it's one of those things that there's kind of I'm not going to say a negative stigma attached, but it's just kind of blasé, I guess. I can't think of a good word for it right now, but that would probably be the absolute thing that you don't want to use, is the "to whom it may concern."
Okay, your slide still has an advance if you want to do something there, but I do have a couple more questions as well.
Sure.
Is it? Yeah, now we're on general cover letter tips. Is that where?
Oh, good. Yep, that's where we
that
are.
was back. It went back too far. So go.
Okay.
We're back on
Are you-
cover letter bits. Do oh, well, it might be coming. No, now it's on questions. Do robots, AI systems go through cover letter looking for keywords?
That is my understanding. You know, whenever you're writing your cover letter as well as constructing your resume, you always want to consider applicant tracking systems that your cover letter and your resume are going to be going through an applicant tracking system or software interface for sure. And so, you know, as many keywords that you can put in that second paragraph that actually really connects you to the job itself using the keywords they use in the job description, you know, I would absolutely you know, in your own words, kind of try to make it as girthy and full as possible in terms of using keywords, definitely.
We're on the questions slide. Yes. Nope.
Oh, you know what? I'm going to try something else here. Hold on just a second. Let me get into.
It's there.
Were we
No,
there?
don't do anything. You're right there.
Yeah, you're
Are we
good.
here?
And
Okay.
why don't you go ahead with this? And Michelle, I will get to your question after this slide.
Okay. Thank you, Louise, for navigating these crazy waters of my iPad with me. I appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
Okay. So this is actually the last slide before the question slide. So in many cases, kind of I touched on it a little bit earlier. In many cases, you're going to have your optional cover letter. You know, and if a job, I would go ahead and think of it this way. You are looking for any way possible that you can stand out among the other candidates who are applying for the same position. So I always recommend to students, if there's an optional cover letter, go ahead and do it. Even if you need to send your cover letter to one of us to kind of make sure it looks okay grammar wise, definitely if there's an optional cover letter, I would always send it, because you never know, that may be that one thing, that one 10 to 15 minutes of effort that the company is like, you know what, they took time to write it. It looks really good. That may be the one thing that sets you apart from other candidates. You just never know. And another thing too, in terms of a general tip, is emailing your resume. If the job doesn't ask for a cover letter but wants you to email your resume versus submitting it online, you can kind of use the body of the email as a cover letter in and of itself. You know, that you know, because that is the first thing. If you're emailing it to someone or to HR, that is the first thing theoretically that a human will see is the email, and then they're going to see your resume attached to it. And so you want to go ahead and act as if that email itself is kind of a cover letter in and of itself. And then you want to personalize your cover letters. You know, remember, even if you're applying to several jobs within the same company, you want to remember to personalize the email. I think that I meant to say cover letter. Personalize the email or personalize the cover letter to each job you're applying for, even if you're applying for jobs within the same company, because, you know, each job is going to have very specific job description keywords, specific responsibilities, and you want to make sure that you, in that second paragraph where you're naming how your qualifications fit the description itself, you want to make sure that it's specific, and that if a company is using the applicant tracking system, it's going to pick up on those keywords. And then lastly, the required cover letter. If it is required, you know, you can attach it with a PDF and a PDF of your resume to a shorter email. So if there's a required cover letter and you're emailing it to someone directly, you can have two separate attachments of your resume and your cover letter as PDFs. And then you don't have to put so much pressure on the email itself being the cover letter. It can be just kind of an intro to yourself, what you're applying for, and that the cover letter and resume are attached. And so that is actually the end. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
There is one more question in the chat, Jessica, and that is from Michelle. And she asked, if submitting our cover letter electronically, should we use a fancy script font or just a plain text one that matches She says cover letter, but I think she means resume.
So is she asking if the actual font within the cover letter itself needs to match the resume?
Yeah, should it be like a fancy kind of font or one that's plain, and should it match the resume?
I always say it should definitely match the resume, because because you're kind of creating that brand for yourself. And you want to also remember that you're actually, you want to keep the reader in mind as well. If they have visual impairments or anything of that sort, if it's a fancy font, they may not be able to read it. And to be honest, I'm not sure about applicant tracking systems. I'm not sure if they are able, I don't know if fonts matter with applicant tracking systems, but I always encourage students to definitely use the font that they used on their resume, because then everything is consistent, everything's readable, and you definitely don't want to go below a 10 font, because again, if people can't read it, they may just toss out the whole thing. So.
Well, and also for, when you sign the electronic signature, should they put that in the script if the rest is plain, to sort of mimic a real signature? That's the question.
If you want to, yeah, it definitely can't hurt. I don't think, and now Carolyn, if you know this, please feel free to chime in. Do electronic signatures affect applicant tracking systems at all? I don't think they do, but.
Well, in most systems, they'll actually just be thrown out. A lot of the older tracking systems in particular cannot read graphics, and so it'll just be completely thrown out as if it weren't there. And to answer the question about fonts and whether or not they matter, to the newer tracking systems, they don't, but the older applicant tracking systems may have difficulty reading serif fonts. So fonts that have the little things at kind of at the end of the letters.
Okay. Thank you.
I have another question in the chat from Anna.
Sure.
Or Anna, sorry. What is the right way to let them know I have dual nationality, specifically from the EU, that lets me work almost anywhere in Europe?
Well, I think that's a really good question. I think that, it depends on the job you're applying for. I mean, I think that you want to make sure, if you're applying for international positions, then I think that the question, the way that you just phrased it, the way Louise read that to me, you can mention that in that first introductory paragraph, if within the job description itself, that's something that they're asking for. If they want dual nationality of particular countries, then you're more than welcome to just mention it that way, that you have freedom to work in either this place or this place, especially if it's within the job description. I would just keep it in as plain of language as you can. And then also at the top of in your resume, in your summary of qualifications, you could put it, if you have a summary of qualifications, you could put that at the top as well, kind of in one of your summary bullet points.
We've got lots of questions coming in.
Oh, goody.
I'm going to skip one and come back to that. In my summary, Tanya asked, in my summary of skills.
Oh, sorry, that's not a question. I was just
Tanya, go ahead.
helping with that one. It's good.
Yeah. Do you want to say it?
Oh yeah, sure. It was just for the other person that was asking about their dual nationality. I had the same issue of how to convey that I'm a native Spanish speaker. So anything that's required translating or anything like that, I could do proficiently. So I just added that one to my summary of skills right at the top. So I was just saying, like, maybe that could work for them as well.
Yeah. Well, and you know how sometimes job descriptions have minimum requirements and then preferred skills as well. Let's say that one of the preferred skills is that you are bilingual in Spanish. That's definitely something you could mention in your cover letter, because it's a preferred skill. If any of the job descriptions you all are looking at or reading have the minimum qualifications as well as preferred skills, and you have some of those preferred skills, by all means, that's kind of a red flag to try and include as many of those and how they're applicable as possible too. So,
thank you.
Sure.
I have a couple more questions, and feel free to raise your hand if you'd like to ask it yourself as well. I don't mean to monopolize the chat questions here, so, but I'll keep going. Should the cover letter body be basically a written explanation of the resume, or should we highlight parts that are not in the resume, like certain examples or soft skills?
Well, kind of all of that combined. You definitely don't want to rehash the resume as, just literally verbatim in terms of this, I have this, this, and this, and this. Now, there may be some occasions where a bulleted cover letter is appropriate, but in my experiences, and if any of the other counselors are on and want to speak to this as well, please do. In my experience, a cover letter is really it's really a way to highlight your soft skills and your writing skills, which are soft skills. And so, I definitely wouldn't do it verbatim. What you're really wanting to do is make sure that the keywords from the job description you're incorporating your experiences into the cover letter. So it's not necessarily about okay, well, this wasn't mentioned in the job description, and so I'm gonna highlight it in the cover letter from my resume. That's actually flip that around. If it's highlighted in the job description, you definitely want to highlight how your qualifications match what they're looking for, because if the company's using an applicant tracking system, that's how you're going to get to the next round. And so, because, and remember, your cover letter is kind of an intro to who you are, and you want to make sure that it's written well enough so that the employer progresses on to the resume itself. Hopefully that answers your question.
I think that's good. It is highlighting and rounding out what you have done on the resume, but both are tailored to the job description, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of just in your own words,
Yeah.
because resumes can be kind of formally written, but let's say the job description mentions, you need 2 years of experience in SolidWorks. I'm just thinking of an engineering term. What I could do is like, okay, if I have that on my resume, I could mention, I have the experience in SolidWorks, like you mentioned in the description, and here is how, because kind of what you're doing is it's more of like a show and tell. It's like, okay, you can tell me that you have experience in this and this, but your cover letter is an example of how to show them that you have that experience.
Jay has a question, a more general question. Do you have any tips, words of wisdom for this difficult times in the job search process due to COVID-19?
Well, in terms of, I know that in this time, a lot of folks have lost their jobs, and a lot of people, I'm not sure in terms of that translating into your particular area of employment, where your specialty will lie in terms of the number of people applying for the same job. But I think that you always want to, I'm trying to think. Okay, since there may be more people applying to similar jobs, because I'm not sure what your background is, you want to make sure that your resume and cover letter are in as good a shape as they can be in, so that you can get to that next step. Because depending on your field, there may be more people applying to the same jobs, and you really want to, even if that means emailing your cover letter to me or to any of us staff or anytime, just to make sure that it's in tip-top shape. That will be the thing that kind of gets you to that next round potentially, especially if you are applying to a job where there may be more people applying than normal. If any of the other counselors want to speak to as well, please do. But that's kind of what my gut is saying. So hopefully that helps a little bit.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
Can hear you.
Okay, I have a question. So where do we email our cover letters if we do want someone to look at it?
Sure. Well, you can email them to career@uark.edu, and that is kind of the general email address, and then that is either forwarded on to our career studio folks, or let's say if you're engineering, I'm not sure it would be emailed to me, or architecture. We have a Michelle who's in architecture. So depending on what field you're in, it'll be emailed to one of us, and then we can help you out.
Okay, so when I put like my major in the subject line.
Sure, if you wanted to, you could just say, or just if you just in the email itself, because your cover letter will probably be an attachment, I'm guessing. You just mentioned that if that you'd like for somebody to review your cover letter, and if you're have a specialty major, it'll be emailed to one of us, and if not, either one of the counselors in the main Career Development Center or one of our peer mentors in Career Studio will help you straight away.
Okay, and it's
I'll
okay that I was a summer graduate, right?
Oh, sorry, Carolyn, I think y'all spoke at the same time. What now?
Yeah, and I'll let whomever was speaking. She said something about graduating.
Yes. It's okay that even though I graduated this summer, I can still use the Career Center.
Absolutely. Yeah, the Career Development Center is here for you until you retire. All of our services are free as long as you would like to use us. We have appointments with alumni in, across country, across the world. So you're always welcome to use our services. And on that point, if you email your resume or cover letter, we can do a review, but because we can't talk to you, it may not be as detailed. So I would recommend, if you really want some personalized feedback, make an appointment with one of our counselors through Handshake, the website to make appointments with the Career Center, or you can call at 479-575-2805 to make an appointment if you prefer to do it over the phone.
Mm-hmm.
That was 28.
And that would be like a FaceTime or a call?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Definitely. And then that way we could, like, for example, when I've done cover letter reviews with my students, I'll have them kind of email me the link to the job they're applying for and email me the okay. And then I kind of get an idea of really what they're kind of in a nutshell, what they're applying for. That can kind of give me a little bit more insight into how their cover letter should look. So. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Oh, a question about how you make an appointment through Handshake. If you, she lives outside the U.S., but you can still log into Handshake, right?
Yeah. If you just log into Handshake, there should be on the student side, there's a Career Center along the top bar, and that will have a drop-down menu where you can make an appointment.